Welcome to the Next Level Faith podcast. I'm your host, Julianne Kirkland, best-selling author and life coach for ambitious women of faith. Join me each week to learn more about the strategies, tools, and mindset needed to arise from the overwhelm and create a joyful life you love. To learn how you can work with me further, grab your copy of my best-selling book, Arise and Shine, or check out how you can get your ticket to my next Awake conference or retreat, head over to juliannekirkland.com. Also, be sure to hit that subscribe button so you never miss an episode, because the best version of you begins on your next level of faith. On today's episode, I am going to welcome Emily Reuschel. She's a motivational speaker where she helps small town achievers deepen self-awareness, align their priorities, and build a life they actually love. She focuses on rural women and building relationships. I'm so excited to welcome Emily.
Welcome, Emily!
Thank you. I'm so excited to be here.
I am so excited you are here. So, I had seen you being interviewed by Tamara, who's just a rock star, human sparkle of a woman. I love her so much. And I was like, I've got to get Emily on because you offer such a unique experience for rural women. And I'm like, man, that's so niche, but so needed. Yeah. So how did you get started in that?
Okay. Well, I think we have to rewind quite a bit before I can even explain where I got to or how I got to today. Yeah. So I live on my husband's family farm in West Central Illinois. I did not grow up in agriculture. I grew up in Southern Illinois, really close to the St. Louis area. So at the time, I thought I lived in a really small town, which is kind of laughable considering where I live now. Our town that we're in is population less than 50. So very different experience. But, met a farmer and farms don't move, so people do. So I found myself out here loving life in the middle of nowhere. Professionally, I was an elementary school teacher and for sure thought I was going to do that for the rest of my life. I mean, how picture perfect, right? The teacher and the farmer, like they write country songs about this stuff, right?
So true.
So I was a fourth grade teacher for 5 years. And even at the time that I was teaching, I had this feeling of, I don't want to say, is this it? Because I loved it and I was good at it. And I love the work I'm doing. I'm a very impact-driven person. And so teaching was obviously a natural fit. But there was just a series of small moments where it was like, I don't 100% feel like this is what I'm supposed to be doing, but what else am I supposed to do? That's a narrative that is especially told to teachers is, well, you're a teacher, so that's just what you do. Right. There's nothing else for teachers to do. So I had a moment, as I was on maternity leave for my son, where I had an opportunity to leave the classroom and jump into being a program director for our local YMCA, which was not expected. I was not looking for other jobs. I had fully accepted the fact that I was going to be Mrs. Reuschel, the fourth grade teacher in our small town schoolhouse forever. But on a total leap of faith, got applied, interviewed, got the job as a director of youth and family development at our local Y. And it's there that I started to understand all of these different things that I was capable of. I was obviously hired to do after school program and summer camp and special events for kids, things that were very much within my wheelhouse. But being at a small rural branch, now suddenly I was the marketing department and had to balance a budget. And learn the ins and outs of fundraising and hire employees and do all the HR stuff. And it was through all of that I started to be like, wow, the world is so much bigger than I anticipated, even in the small town that I live in. So I anticipated, okay, cool. I found my new thing. Now I'm going to be in the nonprofit space where I'm going to be CEO of the Y, right? As you do. And it was during my time there that I hit an extreme level of burnout. I'm an Enneagram 3, and in everything that I do, I have always gone all in, both in the classroom, both in that profession. And, I hit this space of I have this toddler at home. I have this newborn. I'm pumping 8 times a day. It's summer camp season. I have all of these campers. I'm throwing myself into my work and I don't even feel good anymore. Like just everything. I'm like, this is not what I imagined my life to
Right.
look like.
Right.
But on paper, everything's great, right? I have this beautiful family. We're getting established on the farm. I have this job that I love, so flexible, doing meaningful work, but I'm miserable on the inside. So it's then that I jumped into a health journey that introduced me to personal growth for the first time. And I learned what it meant to establish new habits and actually take care of myself from a place of love versus this like weird diet culture we all grew up in.
Right.
Like, I just want to have the energy to be a mom to my kids and to feel good and to be excited about the work that I'm doing. So, a bit into that journey, I'm suddenly following all these personal growth accounts and starting to understand that whole realm while I'm also trying to understand what my role in this world of agriculture is as a farm wife. So I'm starting to follow all these other farm wives on Instagram. And at the time, I felt like I was kind of existing in different worlds. Like here I am in small town USA, finding my role on the farm, connecting with all these farm wives about what it's like during harvest season and just the chaos that comes with being in agriculture. And then I'm also in this world of goal setting and dreaming and understanding habits and just all of this. And I at the time didn't really see anything at the intersection between the two. And I had this moment of like, well, why not me? Like, honestly, it was like after the height of COVID lockdown, and I think we were all delusional at that point.
So true.
And I'm like, I just want to find other people who live in the middle of nowhere,
right,
who are thinking about the same things I am. At the time I was training for a half marathon. I was, doing all of this stuff I'd never done before. And I'm like, I cannot be the only person who lives in a town of population, 50, and also like wants to pursue these goals and dreams or like think about life outside of the box. So what I do now really started with me sharing on Instagram. I started an account at the time called Raising Reuschel with the mindset of we're out here raising our crops, raising animals, raising babies, most importantly, raising ourselves and each other, like really bringing together this community of women. And so it just started with conversations and trying to initiate community around these ideas with these people that I was connected to in a different way. And so over the course of the next couple of years, I know it's like so cliche to say one thing led to another and it snowballed.
But it totally did.
Right, but it totally did. And I had reached this point where I realized I had fallen out of love with my job, even though it was so good to me. Even more than that, I had outgrown it. And so I was ready for something new. But again, back to the drawing board. Well, what does that look like? The job opportunities are not abundant where I live without driving 45 minutes in the other direction. And so I started looking at some opportunities online. That didn't make sense. My husband and I started thinking, well, what if we've always talked about doing like a pumpkin patch. I'm like, I've been working with my kids my whole career. I'm not sure if that's what I want. And he kept nudging me and being like, Emily, you have this thing that you're sharing about online. Like all this stuff, it's starting to grow. And I'm like, yeah, but that's just for fun. Like, it's just a passion project. And he was like, I really think that something could come of that. So long story short, I went to a retreat where a bunch of people told me the same thing. And the next day I told my boss I was leaving and jumped head first into the world of entrepreneurship. So that brings us where we are today. Oh gosh, a little more than a year and a half in. And so basically the through line of my work is helping rural women and women in agriculture through their own personal growth journeys. So I facilitate masterminds for women who are a lot like me, who are living in small towns, but want to do life on purpose, whether it's starting a business or sharing online or reconfiguring what their mindset looks like around goals or family or career. And with that, now I've started hosting in-person retreats. I have a podcast. I do one-on-one coaching, but really the commonality is just helping rural women step into who they are in living life on purpose.
Yeah. Oh, I love that so much. And I love your intentionality to really connect with women, to see them where they are, know what they've been through, what they are going through, and also see the potential that they have, and to pull that out of them. That's so needed in this world. So what have you found to be, as you've been working with these women, what has been, if there has been like a common pain or fear or challenge or frustration, what has that been?
Yeah. And I think that this is definitely present outside of rural communities, but I think especially there's an extra magnifying glass when you are in small towns. Is like, what are other people going to think of me?
Yes.
Like, whether it's my mom or my sister or my mother-in-law or my neighbor or the girl down the street or the people I went to high school with or my husband's friends, there's this like overwhelming pressure of, I need to be who they expect me to be. And whether someone directly said that or whether it's just something we internalize, we put ourselves in these specific boxes, especially when we've created them. Right. Much like how I had a hard time imagining life outside of a teacher because I've worked so hard for this and I love it. And it's all so good. Like, who am I to think that I could or should do anything outside of that? So I think that holds a lot of people in general captive from trying to do anything outside of what they know. If they've never seen anyone do it before, if no one around them is doing it, it feels very foreign and scary, on top of also just embarking on the journey of doing something new.
Right. Absolutely. And that, I mean, like you said, it is occurring elsewhere as well, because, in 2020 and 2021, I was coaching entrepreneurs on Tony Robbins' stage, like big audience of entrepreneurs from all over the world. And it's the same problem. It's that fear of like, the people that know me most are going to be like, who are you to do that? I know where you've been. I know, teachers don't do that, or whatever the lie is, the story is that we've connected to. So what do you do? Like, do you have a methodology or a framework to kind of help bring them out of that story?
Yeah, I think the thing that I do the best with is creating communities of spaces where people can feel seen and heard and understood and talk through all of that. And I think there's so much value in connecting with other like-minded people, seeing what they're doing, especially when they're not biased. They don't know you from high school. They don't know your kids from kindergarten class or whatever. And to see what they're doing and have those vulnerable conversations and, have some intentionality about bringing that kind of stuff to the forefront, and then having the confidence together to kind of grow through that and then step out of it. That's why, things like the masterminds that I'm doing or retreats can be so powerful. You bring together this like group of women that has the intention of like, I want to grow. I know that there's something more for my life than just showing up, but I'm not sure what that looks like, or I'm not sure how to do it, or I'm not sure if I'm confident to do it. And, I think the power of community, we weren't meant to do life alone.
So true.
And unfortunately, a lot of the times the people when we're close proximity to hold us back, and oftentimes with good intentions and out of love.
Right. Well, in their mind it is.
right. But from safety, like I want to keep you safe. I don't want anything bad to happen to you. And so we hold on to that. It's like the bucket of crabs mentality. I don't know if you've know that analogy. But it's like, if one crab tries to escape, the others will inherently
grab on,
pull it back down. Right. And so I think that, being in some of the spaces that I've been able to create and working through all of that and having space to process and just talk your ideas out loud with someone other than maybe your spouse who's like, okay, great. That sounds wonderful. Do it.
You do you, honey.
Whatever. Right. Or your best friend that's going to poke holes in all the idea, or also be like, yeah, that sounds great. Like, do it. Has been so powerful. So it's interesting you ask about a methodology, because sometimes I've second guessed myself and be like, well, what's my thing? Like, what's the signature program, or like the 12 steps to get to where you want to be? And the more women I work with and the more conversations I have, I realize that we are not one size fits all. So there's not a course I can teach that's like, here's 10 steps. to be like me or what. Like, I don't want you to be like me. I want you to be like you.
I want you to be you. Yeah.
Right. And there's not a checklist for that.
Right.
As much as we want there to be. We want there to be the easy button. We want there to be
Right.
like, oh, if I do this and this and this and this, then I'll be happy. But that's where so many of the women I've worked with have gotten to.
Right.
They're achievers. They were super involved in high school. They got the good grades. They got into college. They had the career success. They got married. They had the kids. They bought the farm. They did all of these things that they internalized as the benchmarks for success. And then we live happily ever after. And we wake up one day and we're like,
wait,
okay, but why am I low-key miserable? Like,
right.
my life is good. I am
Right.
so blessed. I have everything
Right.
I've ever worked for. And then we get caught in the shame spiral of like, again, who am I to want something other than this? Why can't I just be happy? I should be grateful for what I have. And it is true and good to have gratitude for where we're at, but that unsettled feeling is oftentimes because we are living so deeply into someone else's expectations of us.
Absolutely.
That we don't even know who we are anymore. We've just been going through the motions and checking all of those boxes.
That's so
really for me, it comes down to like the community and the connection and the togetherness and the journey of self-discovery in a cohort of women who really get what you're going through and are actually cheerleading you every step of the way and genuinely want to see you win while also holding space for every struggle and roadblock that comes up along the way.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think it's so important too that you said, that you hold space to kind of explore this new realm of life, because it is a very vulnerable time. Any time of transition is very scary and unsure and vulnerable. And so often women are afraid to step into that because of that high school mean girl mentality, And so it's like, hey, come be a part of these women. They're like, ah.
Yeah.
So I love retreats. I think they are so incredible and so needed because it plucks you out of, your current conditions and circumstances and gets you away for like just the right amount of time to really put your mind in the right space to move forward. So what are some of your retreats like?
Oh gosh. And I love you say that so well. As powerful as the masterminds I host are, which are virtual, every couple of weeks, for 16 weeks. So we have that regular check-in. Still, when you get off right before you get on the call and right when you get off the call, life is right there.
Yep.
It's so powerful to take that intentional time away to physically remove ourselves from the environment that we're in and immerse ourselves in this container for growth. So throughout the course of my retreat weekends, we really walk through, like, first of all, breaking down those like vulnerabilities, fears, and insecurities we're bringing into the weekend, because how many of us have gone to something and every step of the way be like, oh my gosh, do I belong there? Like, am I crazy for doing this? Right. So we like clear that out of the way first. The next day we spend a lot of intentional time looking at our current situation and kind of like, what's the low-hanging fruit? Because it's really hard to make space for anything new when we're so drowning in the current reality. So, that looks different for everyone, but it's, again, looking at what are those shoulds. I should be doing this, or I should be doing this, or a good mom does this, or blah, 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 blah. And it's in that day that so many people have different kinds of realizations. Maybe it's related to career or housework or motherhood or, whatever. And so we call that the like burn it down day, because it's just emotional to take a step back and look at like, life. And then the next day we get really intentional about, wide net vision casting. Like, wouldn't it be cool if, I think oftentimes goals can be tricky because it's like, well, where do you want to be in 5 years? Or what's your goal? And we're like, I don't know. We just pick something arbitrary that sounds good. And so we really walk through a process of, let's look at the 360 view of life. And if you could imagine, like, if you could snap your fingers, open your eyes, whether it's tomorrow or 10 years from now, like, wouldn't it be cool if, what does life look like? And so then, we go through the process of kind of narrowing it down. Okay, what does that mean then in a goal perspective? And what does it mean to like then pinpoint one specific thing, figure out why we want to do it, why we haven't done it yet. And then what are some of the action steps that help get the ball rolling? Like we can't lay out the whole path, but it's the domino effect, right? It's like you do the first thing, which leads to the second thing, which leads to the third thing, and then we get the momentum. So, just from the tactical perspective, that's what we do. But gosh, it's so much more than that. It's like you said, having that space for vulnerability and that community with people that know what you've gone through.
Right.
And sometimes I'm like, how do I even advertise for retreat? Come cry with 20 strangers for 3 days, and then you'll leave with best friends. And people are like, you are out of your actual mind. And I'm like, it's great. I promise you'll love it.
Yes. Well, it's so funny because I started an Awake event last year, and it's for ambitious women. Ambitious Women Arise as Kingdom Entrepreneurs. I had to remember what the acronym was. But again, like when you're marketing, right? It's like the strongest thing that came out of that event last year were the connections that happened, were the breakthroughs, were the tears, right? Were these women ended up working together, writing books together, like huge things.
Oh, yeah.
But when you're marketing, people are like, I bet, what are the 5 steps?
Right. What am I going to get out of it? How's this going to make my life better? I'm like, just trust the process. Trust the process.
It's so true. But when we focus on really intentionally, like you've been doing, the woman and developing her, because we've learned, especially after COVID, that, we can have a 5-year plan. We can have a 10-year plan, but that could all change.
Oh, yeah.
Really quickly.
In fact, it should.
Right. And it's so if we are working on developing who we are, then we are able to sustain whatever goal that we have in mind. Yeah. Or
we feel grounded in why we're doing it and are okay with pivoting. Like so often we latch onto something. Like I said, I was going to do this. I have to do it. Right. When in reality, another path is presenting itself. And the more you are in tune with yourself and what you want and what your purpose is, the more willing you are to be like, okay, we're gonna veer this way. And that's great.
Yes.
So and I love that you say that in investing in women. I sometimes say my true mission in everything that I'm doing is transforming what it looks like to live in rural communities through the hearts of rural women. Because, when women are connected and believe in themselves, then that's a ripple effect that changes families for generations.
Absolutely.
That's cycle breaking. That changes our schools. That influences every single part of these communities that we live in and that we love.
Yeah.
And so that's really the heart of what I do is just, I don't know. It sounds so cliche to be like, I just want people to be nice to each other, but healed people heal people, and hurt people. And the more that I can help women heal themselves, that's changing the world one person at a time.
Absolutely. And that's the impact that the world needs. So
you just cut out.
Am I here now?
You got super quiet. It's like you're whispering.
Oh, is it better now? Do I need to move my mic? Can you hear me?
Here, let me unplug mine. Okay. Can you talk?
Am I good? Can you hear me now?
I can hear you. It just sounds like you're whispering.
Oh. Well, hopefully it doesn't on my end. So hopefully it'll record just fine.
Yeah, I can barely hear you.
Okay.
Yeah, I don't know what is going on.
Is that better?
No.
What
is going on?
Is that better?
Okay, try talking again.
Can you hear me now?
Nope, now I can't hear you at all.
Oh, no.
Definitely wasn't the headphones. Okay, anyway.
Oh,
there you go. Now you're on again.
Okay, perfect. We'll just fine. Yesterday, I was doing a podcast interview and we were deep in it. She's a best-selling author and we were, deep in the conversation and talking about women leadership and the importance of influence. And my dog, who was laying on the floor behind me, had a seizure. And I was like,
no.
Like, here is life. You know what I mean?
Real life.
It's real life. And that's too, we're talking about investing in women and helping them to heal and to really embrace their story and who they are and integrate all of who they are, right? And to be able to show up. And that's the thing, like, that is life. I work from home. Mm-hmm. There is going to be things like you're sitting in your son's room right now. Like, that's life. You know, there is no perfect, there is no expectation of other people that we have to meet. Mm-hmm. So I love that you're encouraging women in that way of like, hey, yes, you are a rural woman. Like, embrace that and own it.
Yeah.
So good.
Yeah. I think, you know, somewhere along the lines, we're either told or internalize the narrative of like, in order to have big dreams or do anything important with your life, you have to leave your small town and go to the city. And that's especially now, especially after COVID, like that, it could not be further from the truth. Like women are building incredible businesses or nonprofits or things that serve their family literally from their dining room table. And that is incredible.
Yeah, absolutely. And it's almost, there's almost an advantage if you choose to see it this way, because you are out away from so much noise.
Yeah.
You know, I mean, I love just getting outside. I told you I lived in like a rural town of Georgia. And I have a pig and chickens but I love just being able to get out and be on the land. And there's just something so grounding about that.
Oh yeah. 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 I mean, it's why we live where we live, you know, but the cool thing is now we get to define what that looks like.
That's
because
right.
Even within agriculture, there are a lot of boxes that people try to put us in. Like, this is what a farm wife does, or this is what it looks like to be a women in ag. And so I think it's so inspiring, even over the last 3 to 5 years, of how much women are saying, well, I can be this and that and this and that. Like, I don't have to choose. Like, I can, you know, love so many things and create something that's uniquely me and step into all that I am. And it doesn't negate or change the fact that I love this life.
That's right. And the same with like moms, you know, there's so much mom guilt when you're working out of the home, and it's like, but why? Like, if you love to work out of the home, bring it all, you know? So I love the story that you're doing. So we're going to do a quick speed round. Are you ready?
Ooh, yeah.
Okay. Now that we've been talking about agriculture, what is your favorite crop?
Oh, okay. So this is very specific. So we grow corn and soybeans, and I love corn. It's usually in early July when it's like tall and so green, but it hasn't tasseled yet. So when you drive by, it's just like literally waves of like dark, rich green. Oh, pretty. It is beautiful. Beautiful.
Yeah. Oh, I love that. I love that. What is your favorite thing to do on a weekend?
Ooh. That's a great question. So I can't even say that I necessarily do this now, but my husband and I used to live in Southern Illinois in the Shawnee National Forest, like down Carbondale area. And my favorite thing was like go hiking on the weekends. That's where we got engaged, was like hiking. And
I love it.
And yeah, so I get to take my kids down there in a few weeks. So I'm very excited to show them.
Oh, that's awesome. How old are your kids?
They are 6 and 4 and 1 on the way.
Hey. That's so exciting. That's awesome. Who is the bigger disciplinarian, you or your husband?
I think that both of us have tried to be really intentional in challenging what parenting our kids looks like compared to perhaps the way we were raised.
Yeah.
So I wouldn't say that either of us are the disciplinarian, but I will say in our relationship, like, I have been the more proactive one on like understanding our kids and how to best communicate with them and build like relationships with them. And so like I've really had to lead my husband through that journey because it's very unlike anything we've ever seen before. So.
Yeah. I love that. We're going to squirrel off of the speed round for a minute.
Oh, you went quiet again.
Oh no. Can you still hear me now?
Yeah, you're just really quiet.
Okay. I love when you talked about leading your husband, because that is so important too, when we are the one that's kind of awakened to this personal development and learning things and this new perspective on life. So what was that journey like for you?
Yeah, I love that you asked that. So I jumped into personal development. Like I said, I was 6 months postpartum with my daughter. So this was September-ish of 2019. And for a really long time, it was like, oh, cool, that's your thing. I started getting into running, and like I was just reading all these books and listening to all these podcasts. And, I kind of got my husband into some little pieces of it. We went through the Enneagram together. He's a 5, so he got all into that.
My husband's a 5.
Yes. So I'm a 3, he's a 5, which has been incredible for us to figure that out. But for a long time, it was like, oh yeah, that's kind of Emily's thing. And then when it became my job, it was even more so like, okay, cool, that's what you do for work, like whatever.
Right.
And so, there'd be like books I would, try to get him to read, and he'd be like, okay, yeah, I don't really care, whatever. Occasionally I'd send him a podcast episode, he'd listen, move on with his life.
Right.
And so it's interesting. I was actually just having this conversation in an interview on my podcast yesterday. When one spouse is growing in whatever way, spiritually, personal growth, health-wise, and the other is not, that can really create some tension. This like on both sides, like, oh my gosh, are you going to outgrow me? Like, blah, 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 blah. I'm like, oh, I'm so frustrated. I'm learning all this stuff. I'm being awakened to all these new things. I want to bring you alongside with me. And so that's a dynamic I see a lot of times in marriages, as the women I work with are like really starting to unpack and understand and do all these new things. And it was about this time last year that my husband sent me a message. He was like, okay, I get it. And I'm like, get what? What are you talking about? Like, no context whatsoever. He was like, this whole like personal development thing, I think I get it. Like, where you've been going with this. And so then of course he's like, okay, where do I start? What do I do? And I'm like, well, this isn't a 10-step program. Like, I can't give you your personal growth documents. Like, here's some books that I typically recommend, but like, you kind of got to go through this on your own. And so really last year, he went through some like really hard stuff in his journey, and just starting to put the pieces together of like why he did the things that he did and where that came from. And some of the things that he didn't even necessarily like love about that or, hadn't figured out where that came from. And so, it kind of started in like just understanding his money mindset and how he had internalized pieces of that from each of his parents. And then it was like, okay, well, then it was like starting to unpack parenting, and then just so many other things. Yeah. And then I started therapy at the end of last year, and he was kind of like, okay, that's cool for you. And then he saw what I was walking through and was like, oh my gosh, like mind blowing. So, it's just, I think it's so interesting because, the phrase, you can't lead a horse to, or you can lead a horse to water, you can't make them drink. Like, whether it's your spouse or your parents or your friends or whatever, like the best thing you can do is like lead the example of how your life is changing with new information or, getting into different stuff and just radiating that. Absolutely. More so than do this because I did it and I think you should too.
Right. Oh, you speak so much truth there. and too with our kids, like I have a teenager, he's 14, and it's that like balance of, okay, you are starting to make decisions on your own. I am still the parent. I am still going to guide you and to speak into your life and to speak love and truth. And at the end of the day, you're going to make a decision, and you're going to have to deal with the consequence of the decision, and where I'm going to come into play is if you lie to me or, in some way that decision that you made is not brought in truth to me, there's another consequence that comes along with that. Right. And it's just,
but ultimately like you can standard. Show the best example that you can, but at the end of the day, like you got to navigate your own journey and figure out what that looks like for you.
It's so true. Yeah. Oh, Emily, this has been such a great conversation. Thank you so much. Thank you for your time and how you're pouring into women and just really impacting the world for better. Thank you so much.
Well, thank you so much. I enjoyed this.
Yes, absolutely. Yeah. That's it, my friends. Remember, the best version of you begins on your next level of faith. Bye for now.